Hey everyone, VH here, and today we're going to be going through my Forest Faction Guide 2025. Please like and subscribe. I've got all the other faction guides as well as tier lists on all heroes and artifacts and other beginner guides out or coming out. I've been enjoying it so far and thank you for all the support. So yeah, let's get into the Forest Faction Guide. First up, we're going to talk about the general overview. Forest is considered one of the better factions and it's mainly really strong in support. It has 3 must-build heroes. These are heroes that every account's going to want up to various points. The good thing with must-build heroes is that vast majority of the time, they're heroes that you'll build up to 10-star and you'll switch them in and out of your team so they don't take up loads of food. They're mainly used for niche purposes rather than every single game mode and every single battle. They have 1 main carry. This will be your main hero, your first E5. 6 great supports, who will just boost the output of your team. 5 potentially viable, so this will be either very niche heroes or perhaps heroes whose role is as the main hero but they're just not as good as others. You could build them for fun perhaps. And then finally, unfortunately, there's 10 forever foods, heroes that you can basically feed off indiscriminately. They're not going to be useful in your account unless you have a real love for them. So the essential builds in the Forest faction, there's 3 of them. All of them are supports. First up, we've got Olivia. Olivia is really cool. So her basic and her active skill has a unique ability called Shrink. And Shrink means that the target that shrunk takes more damage and deals less damage. She also has a nice speed swap inbuilt in her. So really solid, useful for lots of different game modes. And because it's not a control or a mark, her Shrink ability, it can't be purified and it hits 100%. So she's used for consistency purposes as well. Next up, Heart Watcher. Everyone should know Heart Watcher, one of the more OG heroes. So her basic and her active both give Watcher marks, and the Watcher marks, they go up to 300%. So every Watcher mark adds up. They're not round based either. They're just on the enemy until the end of it, unless they cleanse them. And once they get up to 300%, your teammates are hitting the enemy 300% damage extra. So if they were hitting 1 million, they're now hitting 3 million. It's great. She also does, on her active skill, does reduce 25% of attack, and she heals when she crits, and she has a bit of native crit. So there is some viability there. If you're really early game and you get lucky with copies of her, which you should because she's a basic shard hero, you can just have her on your first team until you build up the rest of your team. She has got some viability. And then finally, Rogan. Most teams have a Rogan at some point. Definitely not food. You want to keep him there. It's not really for his basic or his active like damage. He's got 2 main abilities, and that's Bloodthirsty and Warpath Roar. Bloodthirsty is on his active. Gives Bloodthirsty to 2 teammates. They basically do extra damage on attacks, and then that damage heals them. Whatever damage they do heals them. And the big one is Warpath Roar. Start of the battle increases all allies' speed and crit damage, and at the end of each round increases all teammates' attack and crit, and assassins get double of that bonus. I saw someone the other day on a new build account I had, and he had 3 level 6 Rogans, but it was on Brave Trial, and it was impossible to take him down because at the start of the round he was boosting everything. At the end of each round they're boosting everything, and they were becoming so strong. But yeah, there'll be accounts that will run double Rogan, etc. And he's more so than Heart Watcher and Olivia, someone that can go on your main team and build up to E5. For the first main carry, or the only main carry in the Forest faction, we've got Flora, one of my favourite heroes. Just a really nice all-round hero that is very straightforward and easy to understand. So her basic attack is a percent-based damage poison dot, and she gets a 15% healing for 2 rounds based off her max HP. Her active does 5 hits as long as there's 2 or more enemies, so it bounces between them. Every damage increases in damage, and every bubble or whatever you want to call it that goes round also has a chance to twine, and the twine percentage goes up as it goes round as well. And her passive reduces the enemy's attack that's attacking her and increases her attack. So you can see why she's a super useful all-round hero, either as your main carry or you can turn her into a support, make her more control based. Going into the great supports, we've already obviously talked about Olivia and Heart Watcher and Rogan. First up is Seahu, one of my more favourite heroes. I like him. He can be used on block teams primarily. So his basic attack does virtually nothing, But what it does is decrease the all enemies precision. So not just the one it hits, all enemies precision. His active skill does a lot of damage to one hero. It strips them of loads of their armor. But most importantly, it boosts all your team's block. And then his passive, when your team blocks 6 times, it increases all your teammates' armor and attack. So he's reducing the enemy's precision, increasing your block, and then when your team block, increases armor and attack. And it doubles on himself. So again, like Rogan, you'll see some teams that will run 2 Seahus because obviously it gets boosted up, and his active ends up hitting really hard, and it's nice. A bit more anti-synergistic, like you have to build them around block teams, but I like Seahu. Then we've got Freya. Freya's quite cool. So her basic attack hits the highest attack enemies, attack steals them and reduces armor. And her active skill, it does okay damage to multiple enemies and heals from damage done, but more importantly, it inflicts primitive bud. So when team attacks the enemy with primitive bud, they take extra damage and your teammates gain shield and a small chance to remove buffs. And her passive, so it increases her damage reduction when she's attacked and has a follow-up chance to use primitive bud when your teammates attack. So 2 nice passives there. So the primitive buds stack up really nicely, and your teammates just end up doing extra damage, get shields, and removing buffs and debuffs. And she becomes a really cool Transcendence hero, so there's that use as well. And then Gloria, like Flora, I think she's a really underrated hero that you don't see built, and it's a shame. So her basic reduces crits and bubbles the opposition. Her active reduces attack and bubbles the opposition. And what the bubbles do, when the hero with the bubbles takes damage, the bubble bursts. It damages them for extra damage and has a chance to stun. And her passive, whenever an enemy attacks either Gloria or the teammates, Gloria inflicts magic bubbles on 3 random enemies. So those bubbles ramp up. Every time then they're getting attacked, they're taking extra damage, extra chance to get stunned. So nice. I mean, the stun chance is low, so it's a bit inconsistent. But like anything, she can obviously be built up plenty of different ways. And I think she's more than viable. And I'd like to see more Glorias built. And finally, we've got potentially viable. Garuda is someone that a vast majority of players are going to build because you get so many copies of her in the newbie growth plan. I recommend that every account builds her to 10 star. You use her up until she's 10 star, and then depending on how lucky you get with other copies or other heroes you want to build, you can build her further. I normally just recommend that she be like your final 10 star food to make your first hero you want to build up E5. She has inbuilt damage reduction, and when teammates die or heroes die, she builds up her active skill like Morax does, and her active skill gets more powerful when she heals when they die, and she's just a bit mad. I don't really want to talk about Garuda too much. Most people are going to build her. Then we've got Melissa. Melissa, like Freya, becomes a really good Transcendence hero. I just think that she gets outplayed by lots of different other heroes in the game, and I don't really like her passive skill, which we'll get into in a second. Without the passive skill, if it was a different passive skill, I think she'd be really cool. So her basic does small damage, but it gives a nice chunky shield and increases control immunity on the ally with the lowest HP. I get a little bit, I don't like the lowest HP thing because I feel like if that's not your main hero, it might just be wasted. Her active skill does small damage to backline, reducing their control immunity, and grants B Sugarcoat and a big shield to 2 teammates. B Sugarcoat increases control immunity for your teammates. And her passive, this is the one I really don't like. So if your teammate gets controlled and she's got over 50 energy, she uses 50 energy to get rid of the control and gives you shield and Sugarcoat. So if that's to your main hero, fine. If it's not, again, it just feels like a waste, like she's then not able to do her active skill. And I just think she could easily be changed a little bit to become much more viable. But yeah, just too inconsistent for me. Then we've got Oberon. I love Oberon, and I am 100%, if this all works out for me, I'm going to build a couple of different accounts, non-meta accounts, and Oberon's going to be part of it, along with like Betty and a Flora. So he does Twines, that's like his big thing, and Twines is obviously a fantastic control effect. It means they can't do anything. And his active and basic both does it. But the important thing is, when an enemy gets twined, he gets a big attack boost for 6 rounds. So if you're ramping up these twines and the enemies getting twined all the time, I think he'll end up becoming and hitting like a truck. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. That he is definitely viable. He's a fun hero to build. Speaking about older heroes, we've got Valkyrie. Valkyrie and Horus at one point were the two meta heroes. Valkyrie's interesting. She's one of the only heroes, if not the only hero, that does her damage based off her HP. I think DH Games, when they made her, realised it was a mistake because they haven't really brought one out again. So back in the day before Treasure Train, and obviously Grimoire, you could build her to have silly HP levels. You didn't need a mysterious artifact, you just put Rune's Power, which is HP damage reduction. And she'd just be impossible to kill because she'd heal off of damage. I mean, they nerfed her eventually, but she'd heal off her damage that she's doing, her burns. So she was like an Eloise, in that, yeah, she'd take damage, burn it, heal at end of every round, and just become very difficult to fight against. She's not a homeowner, which is a shame. If she was a homeowner, I'd love to build an account around her. But now with the Primal Grimoire and you can build up the HP pool, it'll be very interesting to see how good she is. Admittedly, by that point, you're going to probably have Transcendence heroes, and so she definitely will fall off. But she could be fun to build around, and she's basic shards. So if you did want to go down the route of building Garuda as your first, you could maybe build Valkyrie as your first if you're free to play and you're really struggling to get hero copies. And then finally, we've got Sylvie. Sylvie for me is probably the most disappointing hero because she looks awesome and her kit's amazing. Like Melissa, where I said with a few tweaks she could be really good, Sylvie could just be amazing, but I just don't see it. Like, her basic attack hits one enemy, and if they were the target of the previous basic attack, it does a bit extra damage, but it's not even like a big hit, and there's no extra effects to it. Her active skill does damage to all enemies, and it's boosted by her momentum accumulation build-up. I'll get into that in a sec. And she wants to block, so every time she blocks, she counterattacks, hits the frontline enemies, and heals off of it. The counterattack is nice. The heal needs to be bigger, in my opinion. Like, she doesn't heal enough from it. And then every time she blocks, she gains a layer of that momentum accumulation. So when she releases her ultimate skill, it increases how many times she's hitting the opponents. So that can build up. And every layer increases your team's attack and block. Her kit kind of says that she's your main hero. But in gameplay wise, she's not strong enough for that. So she has to be a support. And I think you can build her on very niche teams. Talked about Seahu already. She could probably be built in a team with Seahu. But yeah, for me, just not enough there. But if you like her and you want to play on accounts that you like the heroes, then by all means use her. She is definitely viable. But yeah, if not, just a little bit disappointing. Right, and that's me all done. I really appreciate if you're still listening and watching to this. I've been having a great time of it so far. Please like and subscribe. Comment down below. I respond to all the comments that aren't just hateful. Yeah, listen, stay safe, and VH out.